All right, so you're thinking about buying your own little piece of heaven, your own little piece of Texas, and you're wondering, do I really know all the different pros and cons and all the little details that I need to know? Well, if you're interested in that, then you're in the right place, and we're going to be getting after it right now. Hey everybody, I'm Kerry Fletcher, a land and ranch realtor right here in the great state of Texas. And if you're curious about anything and everything about this lifestyle, what does it cost? Where are the best places to go? What is it like to live, eat, sleep, drink, land and ranch living? Well, this is the channel for you. Hit that subscribe button, ring that little bell, that way you're notified with new videos every time we post them. And when you're ready to make that purchase decision, when you're ready to jump in with both feet, give us a call, send us a text message, send us an email. Heck, you can even send us a note via Pony Express. Any which way, we've got your back. Now, today you're in luck. Today we have this wonderful opportunity to talk to a married couple who have a husband and wife who've been living this land and ranch lifestyle for 30 years, all over the state of Texas. They've had big acreage, small acreage, built their own house a couple of times, and they have some wonderful stories to tell about the good, about the bad, about the pros, about the cons. So stick around. It's Randy and Michelle Fletcher, Nana and Poppy, and they happen to be my mom and dad. Sometimes, as they say, you choose the lifestyle. Other times the lifestyle chooses you. I was born and raised in this and have been around it my whole life. So I'm looking forward to interviewing these guys and drawing out some of those great stories that you need to know. Now stick around. Some of the funniest and the best are at the end.
Hello, my name is Randy Fletcher.
And I'm Michelle Fletcher.
And we've been married for 51 years. And we've lived in the country for 3 different times. This latest time we've been living 12 years in a small ranch, 60-acre ranch outside of Rockdale in Milam County, Texas.
I've been hearing these stories since I was a little kid, but I love the story of how you guys decided that y'all wanted to be a part of living on the land and living that ranch lifestyle.
Okay. All right. We got married in 1969, and for the first several years of our marriage, we lived in Dallas, lived in San Antonio, and then we moved to Stephenville, Texas, in a rural community.
But it goes back before then.
But I'm going to get to that in just a minute. And because of our background, mine being that I was raised in a small town and always wanted a horse, never owned a horse. My uncle owned horses and my cousins were riding horses all the time. But my dad, he had one value for a horse. He'd give you $1 for it if you drug it up or rode it up. That was all he'd give you for it. And he'd gone through some rough times in the 50s where he had lost a lot of money in the cattle business. And he was not interested. He was raised on a horse. He was not interested in owning one. And I'd always wanted one. That's the only thing I wanted for Christmas was a horse, but I never got one. And then
I grew up just the opposite. I grew up in the big city. I grew up in Dallas. I had no idea of being in the country, except when I went to visit cousins down in Central Texas. And for my younger brother and I, that was our greatest joy, was to go to the country and to go be with the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the lots of cousins in the country. That's when we were happiest. So I knew that my goal, I always said I wanted a farmer, but I really wanted an outdoor guy. I wanted somebody who respected the land, loved the land, and and was familiar with rural life. And
Now,
that's what
where specifically? You say Central Texas, but there's a tiny little town, and where is it located?
That we're now?
No. When you were growing up in
Oh,
Dallas,
growing up in Dallas, it was Jonesboro.
Jonesboro. Now,
Jonesboro and
for those of
Young-
you who don't know Jonesboro, where is it?
It's central Texas, Coryell County,
Between Gatesville and
Hamilton,
Hamilton.
right in the center of Texas.
Now, Poppy, you tell this story about how your dad had one value for a horse, and it was $1, whether it was dead or alive, whether you rode it up or drug up. What was his early childhood like? Why do you think he reached that conclusion?
Well, a lot of it had to do with his economic circumstances. We lived in town. He didn't have a place to keep the horse. But the other part of it was that he was raised on a horse. He rode a horse everywhere he went when he was younger. He was raised in Mills County, right outside of a little town called Mullen, just north of Mullen. And he went to school in a little place called Democrat, and he had to ride a horse. He and his brothers and sisters had to ride a horse from the house to school every day. And he graduated, only had 11 grades then. So he graduated from high school and he moved to California. And it was during the Depression, didn't have any money. He didn't move back to Texas till after World War II. He served in Europe in World War II and met my mother, and they got married, and he had 4 kids within 5 years of after they got married. And he never really had any money where he could afford to have horses. And I was really the only one of the 4 that wanted a horse. He didn't want one, and the rest of them didn't want one, so it wasn't a priority to him.
Now,
But mostly because he rode them all the time, and he didn't want to ride a horse anymore.
Now, I don't know if this was attributed to my grandfather, your father, or not, but some of the phrases that I've heard is, poor people ride horses, and, people with money or people who can afford it actually ride a car, right?
Well, I've heard that, yes.
Back then,
Back then.
yeah, now it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's the opposite. Okay. So this is like a lifestyle that you guys have had a desire about and wanting to do it since you were young, very early memories.
Yes.
So what kicked it off? You were telling me about Stephenville and that first place. What was it? 87 acres out there, right?
Yes, about that, 80-something acres. We moved to Stephenville, and I was in the banking business. And Michelle was still going to school at Tarleton, but she also worked at a nursing home as an activities director. The kids were up to an age where we wanted them to experience the things that we missed. So we bought this 80-something acres outside of Stephenville, and we built a house. We built it pretty much ourselves, very small house. And we moved out there and lived there for 4 or 5 years. And we started into the horse business. We had cows. We had a few cows on 87 acres. We couldn't have a lot of livestock. We had some goats, but the focus was the horses, and pretty much made every mistake in horses that you can make. I was talked into buying a Shetland pony because the kids were small. Shetland pony was small, and that was a terrible mistake.
Worst ever.
Yeah, and that horse Shetland ponies are notorious for being very strong-willed and really smarter than their owners. And there was one day that he even got a hold of the door with his teeth and popped it open and walked into the house. And our oldest son has still never forgiven me for making him ride that horse over to my mother's house. And the horse, he had to beat him the whole way over there to get him to go. And he refused to ride him back, so we had to go get him and go get the horse. He still hadn't forgiven me.
Now, in your son's defense, how many miles was that? Not just as the crows flies, it was probably what?
It was about 7, 8.
Okay, so on the road is about 10 miles going down the highway, and he was probably what, in the 4th, 5th grade?
Yeah, he was about 11, somewhere around there.
Okay,
10 or 11.
so
But he'd been riding for a while, so he knew how to ride.
childhood trauma-inducing
Yes.
type lifestyle. All right.
Yeah, and in our defense, we were just ignorant at the time, and we had a neighbor that helped us kind of improve our herd. We got some better horses, and Toby, our oldest son, started roping, and we moved from there. My circumstances changed, and we moved to outside of Brownwood. I was working in Brownwood, and we lived in Early, and we bought a house in about 10 acres outside of Early, going over to Goldthwaite. And it was really a nice house. Had a little barn behind it, and we improved our horse herd through friends. I had a gentleman friend named Harold Heath that's what he did. He bought and sold horses, and he helped me get some quality horses, some really nice horses, and we had less trouble riding. Toby, our oldest, got into roping, and Carrie got into, we were doing junior rodeos all the time. We'd go Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. As soon as we got off, we'd load up the trailer with the horses and go, and the kids would run barrels and poles and rope, and that was kind of our lifestyle. That's what we did.
The money we spent, we could have been millionaires.
Oh, yeah.
But the land always seemed to be attached to horses. Owning the land was always because of the horses.
Yeah.
Now, there's a couple of things. We skipped over. You talked about the house that you built there in Stephenville. Now, some people say that they built a house when they when they form the function as a general contractor and they subcontract everything out, and they've got one group that comes in and does the plumbing, and they have another group that does the engineering or design. You literally built this house, right?
Yes, we built most of it. I had help. I mean, plumbing help. I had a plumber and an electrician, but I hired them. But a lot of the framing work and setting up the foundation, we did ourselves, because I had done that when I was younger in college. I had poured a lot of concrete. I had helped build houses when I was in college for the O'Neill brothers. We built a bunch of houses, and I was very familiar with that. So I actually did most of that work. I did have some help, and I found out the help wasn't very dependable. They were all ropers, and if it was I remember one thing, we hadn't worked in about 3 weeks because it'd been raining or something. The weather had been bad, and it broke out on a beautiful Saturday, and I called them and said, "We're gonna work today, y'all gonna come help me?" "Oh no, we gotta go roping." So if you end up hiring a roper, their first priority is roping, and everything else comes secondary. So, but we did get it built. It wasn't perfect, but it was a nice little 2-bedroom, 2-bath house with, in the middle, we segregated 5 acres. We had 5 acres and a little shed and pens back behind it to keep the horses and some of the cows. We had a few cows then.
Now, Nani, do you remember raising chickens and your first attempt at raising chickens?
I need to tell this story.
Oh, no.
No, I need to tell the
Doesn't
story.
tell the story.
No, I need to tell it. She,
Gives him great pleasure. I'll let him tell the story.
I was home one Saturday afternoon, and she had gone to they had a big
Flea market.
between Dublin and Stephenville, and she'd been to the flea market, and she came home. She was bound and determined to have chickens. So I was sitting in there, I guess I was watching a football game or something, and she said, she came home and said she bought all these chickens. And I went out to look at them, and she had about 6 roosters and 1 hen.
They saw me coming.
Yeah, they saw her coming. And which, if you know anything about animals, you know that won't work. If you have more than 1 rooster around, that's all they do is fight. And she had all these roosters, and she turned them loose in the yard, and they immediately started fighting to who's going to be the head rooster, the alpha rooster. And she comes running into the house and says, "Randy, come help me stop these roosters from fighting." And I go out there, and all these roosters, I mean, they're just getting after it. I said, "There's no way to do that. That's just part of nature." And that's part of the learning experience you have with moving in the country and owning animals. There's always going to be, if you have a bunch of them, there's always going to be the top and the bottom, whether it's horses or cattle or whatever it is. You're going to have a pecking order, as they say, and especially if you've got that many roosters and only 1 hen.
So Nani, I remember a story or a time of, I thought it was animal cruelty. Your mother had taught you how to run the head of a chicken, wring the head of a chicken off, and we were going to have chicken
And dumplings.
and dumplings, right?
Yeah, sadly, my Aunt Ruby. Now it was my Aunt Ruby more. She was the country queen. But yeah, when we would go and we were going to have chicken for supper, she would go take that chicken and she would, in one fell swoop, she would just pop that head right off the chicken. So I thought, well, I'm going to try. What? You just pop that head. So that's why I grabbed that chicken. And if you've ever seen them wind up a Ford, Model A Ford, you know how well, that's kind of the way it was. I was popping and rotating, and that chicken was just, it was animal cruelty, I'm sure. And then I'd let him down and he would waddle all over the place. It was sad, yeah. My Aunt Ruby made it look easy to just pop that in.
All right, so now look, if you've been enjoying this video so far, do me a favor. Hit that little like button. It really helps the channel, helps the video, helps with the algorithms. But also, if you have any questions, if there's some story that really talked to you, or if there's something that you want to know more about, just put it in the comment section down there, and I'll reach back out to you, or I'll get Nani and Poppy to reach out to you, and also gives us some great ideas for follow-up videos. Now back to Nani and Poppy. For me, you know, you guys chose this lifestyle. The lifestyle sort of chose me because that was what y'all wanted to do. And so we kind of got drug along. I think there was something around 60,000 miles we put on that pickup truck driving just one summer going back and forth. Now, you talk about horses and about how the land was always tied to the horses. Now, during this time in and around Brownwood, Brown County, I remember we leased some land and we bought some cows. And you know, I could tell the story, but I'd love to hear it from y'all's perspective about, you know, that experience, how much money you spent and how that turned out.
How much money we lost?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to tell us?
Yeah, no, I would.
Okay.
This is your story.
This was an idea I had, and I had a partner, or a couple partners that I did business with, and I made so many mistakes. The first one was letting my partner buy the cattle. And when you go to a cattle sale, you really need to know, because you only have just a few seconds to look at the cattle before you have to make a buying decision. You have to really know what you're looking at, and none of us did. We just went in there and he bought pens of cattle. Well, what they do is they put a couple of really nice ones in there, and then the others are culls. And so we got some nice cattle, but we got a bunch of culls. And we leased 600 acres out near Lake Brownwood. Now, my partner, he sold his part of the cows, and I kept mine out there. We still had a lot of lease left, but he didn't want to mess with them because it was a long ways out there, and it's labor intense. You have to go out there and feed them and check on them on a regular basis. And what happened, this was in 1983. In 1983 in Brownwood, it had a weather anomaly.
The worst.
And I was working in a bank, and it dropped below freezing in January. And it never got above freezing for about 3 or 4 weeks. Now, when your water freezes, your cattle have to have water, and they have to have food. This is in January. There wasn't a lot of grass around, so I had to go out there twice a day and feed the cattle, and I had to break the ice up where they could get water. And it became very, very labor intense for us. And then when we got through that and it warmed up, we sold all the cows, and except one. We couldn't catch. I'm gonna let you tell this story.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that it was not only the worst winter on record, then it became probably a terrible drought. And whatever grass was there during the summer month, it's just, there was no rain. The stock tank went down to nothing, And finally Randy said calf rope.
Yeah,
We're
we
gonna
sold
sell
them. I can't tell you how much money I
Oh,
lost.
but wait.
Wait a minute,
Wait.
I'll finish. But we lost a lot of money. And we got them all rounded up and sold except this, when we were doing that, we had a cow stuck in the tank. The
Yeah.
tank had dried up and was stuck in the tank. I'd been playing golf that day. I still had my golf shoes on and my shorts and my shirt, and Michelle had loaded the horses up and gone out there, and this cow was in the tank. So we roped the cow in the tank around the neck, and we were gonna pull the cow out of the tank. Well, I got a rope around his,
I had to do the pulling because I wasn't in the shorts and the,
yeah. Anyway, she was riding the horse. And she,
Wait a second. Y'all are also missing out. Where was my brother and I? So you were on a
That's
horse.
cool.
No, I was there.
there, yeah.
I was there. I was in the
Why
mud.
weren't you on the horse?
I was in the mud.
Everybody was pulling.
Yeah, pulling. Okay,
Anyway,
go ahead.
we were trying to get the horse out of the tank, and Michelle was on a mare we had, and she had the rope dallied on the saddle, and she was pulling with the deal, and we were pulling with other ropes trying to get this cow out, and her saddle cinch broke, and she came off the horse and hit her head. And if you've ever been around a head bleeding, it just bleeds terrible. And we had to stop what we were doing and take her to the doctor and get her head sewed up. By the time we got back out there, I wasn't going to go through this again, so I backed my trailer up, put a rope around the cow's neck, got that rope, tied it to the back of the trailer, which was tied onto the truck, and we just drug the cow out. And
Which is what we should.
and made her wild as the devil, because we never could catch her after that. And a little bit later, I had a brand new truck out there, and I thought, well, we're going to rope this cow, and we're going to get her in a trailer and haul her to the
We're
sale.
gonna dally it off on the trailer hitch.
Yes, we dallied the very mistakenly, another one of these mistakes.
So
Yeah.
describe what a dally is.
The dally is where you wrap it 2 or 3 times around, and then the friction holds the rope in one place. It won't slide out of your hands.
But I'm driving across the pasture, and you and the boys are in the back, swinging the ropes and.
Anyway, after we
Yeah.
got the cow dallied, instead of getting the cow into the thing, the cow swings out on the rope and comes around and just headbutts the pickup and makes this huge dent in the side of this pickup. It was nearly a brand new pickup. And
And then I remember it went all the way back around and dented in the other side too, right?
I don't remember that, but I
Yeah.
just remember a big dent. So we let the cow go, and
Well, but she not only did that, she got caught up, and then she went, and you had to jump off and cut your new rope to let her go.
These are the learning experiences you have with cattle. So what we did was we had lost the lease, or we were giving the lease up, and we just let the cow stay there to the landowner because we'd already done enough damage. We'd lost enough money trying to catch that cow.
Now, Nana, you tell a story about, the timing of this. Now, something happened and you guys drove back by and thought for sure the cow had died of its own.
It was terrible. I mean, there was no water, no grass. I mean, it was tight calf rope. Give up, get rid of the cattle. We're out, we're done. We've already, the pickup, the rope, we've lost. So we leave the old cow there to let her die. Well, months later, the rain finally does come. We're back driving by. Fat, sassy old cow out there, no longer ours, of course, but yeah, she's on the other side of the fence and fat and sassy and happy, so.
Anyway,
That's the way it goes.
All right, so why didn't y'all just call? I mean, we've talked, it seems like if somebody were just listening to these stories, they'd be like, heck no, I never want to get into this lifestyle. I never want to do it. why do you do it now? Or tell me a little bit about y'all's place now and how did y'all get there and why are y'all still doing this?
Well, first of all, at that particular point in time, I said I would never, ever, 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 ever own another cow.
Never say never.
Never say never.
Never say never. So we were living on this 10 acres in Brownwood, and I got an opportunity to go to Goldthwaite to be president of a bank. So we went down there, and we eventually bought a house in about 9 or 10 acres. And we didn't have any cows, we just had horses. We had several horses, and we rode, and we were still doing the junior rodeo circuit and play days and things, and really enjoyed the horses. At that particular time, we thought, well, we'll get some goats. And we bought about 25 or 30 goats, nanny goats and a billy goat. And we lived, our place backed up to the railroad tracks. Now at that time, the boys had gotten a little bit older and they played football, and we had added another nephew that was living with us. So we were going to a football game. I drove out of the place going to a football game, and I look at the back fence, and all the goats have gotten under the fence, and they were leaving. They were walking down the railroad tracks. Well, I'll get them the next day. Well, anyway, we couldn't find them, and apparently that night they had bedded down on the tracks, and a train came by and killed all of them. Lucky for us, the rule is in Texas is that the railroad company has to keep those fences along their railroad tracks up. It's their responsibility, and they wrote us a check for all the goats. And if you own goats, if you ever own goats, you will know that a billy goat, when he is breeding, smells so bad, you just can't stand to be around it. And so we decided, once we got the check from the railroad company, we were not going to own goats anymore. So we stuck with horses. Now subsequently we moved again, and we moved to Rockdale, where we live now. And subsequently we got back into horses, and
Well, first we gave up horses because
when we moved,
our kids had found wheels and girls.
well, we did still have horses. We had horses. We didn't sell the horses until we moved.
to Rockdale, but right.
So we had.
Hey everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did. Just remember, anytime you're ready to move forward, just give us a call, send us an email, send us that Pony Express note. Any which way, we've got your back, and we look forward to getting to know you and helping you find that great piece of heaven here on earth.